stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Behold his mighty hand.
Looking back on it, even Charlton Heston agrees his career has been epic. Consistent work for over 50 years, some 70 films in total. But for a chance meeting with a famous director, a young Heston may never have made it.
He was the Steven Spielberg of that time, or perhaps Mr. Spielberg is the Cecil B. DeMille at this time. But in any event, I'd met him. And a couple of days later, I was driving off the lot, and I just waved to him, and he nodded and turned to his secretary. And he said, "Who is that?" And she flipped through her book and said, "That's Charlton Heston. He's a Broadway actor. Hal Wallace brought him out. He's done one picture, Dark City. You ran it last week. You didn't like it." And he said, "I like the way he looked just now. We better have him in to talk about the lead in the circus picture."
That circus picture was the greatest show on earth. It won an Oscar for the best film of 1952. And it set Charlton Heston on his great ride to movie stardom.
Now get going.
What do you think he noticed? What was it?
It's impossible to say, but his eye was good. He saw something that seemed to work for him. Presence, I suppose.
Cecil B. DeMille made epics. Big budget, big risk, with the potential to bankrupt studios if they failed. On any DeMille set, the boss was revered. Most of the time, anyway.
He was describing a scene to the extras, and he noticed a pair of extra girls chattering 150 feet away, whispering between themselves. And so he said, took the microphone and said, "The young lady in the orange headdress in the, yes, you miss, you know, you seem to have found something to say to your friend that was more important than what I'm saying to you and your colleagues. Why don't you come down and tell us all about it?" And she came down and she took the mic and she said, "Well, I was just saying to my friend, I wonder when that bald-headed old son of a bitch is going to call lunch." Huge roar of laughter. When it quieted, DeMille took the mic back and said, "Lunch." Which, see, he won, really. But the only thing he could possibly have done. Thank you all very much. I'll skip the Moses jokes, too. Almost everyone here has known me a long time, and
The life of any actor is full of uncertainty. But the one constant in Heston's life has been Lydia, his wife of 51 years. And believe it or not, the very first girl he ever asked out. And was it love at first sight?
For me.
Not for her?
No. I think men and women do that differently. I think a man falls in love is like falling off a bridge. And a woman tends to think, I don't know, with some work, maybe we could turn him into an actual human being. and I think that was our experience. My success, my eventual success on which my life turned, after desperate, absolute failure in persuading her to either marry me or go to bed with me before I went off to the war. And I had the classic soldier's argument that soldiers have used for thousands of years.
Let me guess, I may never return.
I may never return. This may be our only chance. You may never see me again. Perfectly true. Didn't turn her by a hair, but I somehow persuaded her to marry me, but just before I went overseas.
In Hollywood today, it's quite unusual to see a marriage like this, especially one that began with a simple ceremony and a very cheap wedding ring. Now, can I see this $12 wedding ring that he bought you 50
Oh, yes,
something
with
years
pleasure.
ago?
There
You
it
really
is,
do wear
and
it.
it's still there.
So over 50-something years.
That's what, about 10 cents a day, or 10 cents a year.
God,
God of Abraham, take my child into thy hands, that he may live to thy service.
As well as having an ideal marriage, Charlton and Lydia have produced son Fraser and daughter Holly. Fraser is now a film director, and thanks to his dad, he learnt about movie making early in life. Fraser did have one role, didn't he?
Oh, he played the infant Moses, yes, but he says, I don't remember the performance very well.
But you nearly lost him. You nearly lost him, didn't you?
Not really. The basket in which he was floating in the Nile sank under him, but I was near, and he was floating quite happily while the basket was disappearing, and it wasn't the real Nile anyway. It was a tank at Paramount.
In Hollywood, the 50s were the big era, and nothing was bigger than Ben-Hur. It included that unforgettable chariot race, a scene which lasted for 9.5 minutes on screen, but took an eternity to set up. Heston says it remains the best action sequence ever filmed. And I've got some statistics here. 1,000 workers laboured for a year to build the arena. The largest single set in film history. It took 3 months to shoot.
Yeah.
Some of it looked downright dangerous, what you were doing.
Well, you have to understand a scene like that, and actors are prone to exaggerate the extravagant courage they displayed in doing and the danger to which they were exposed.
And you did know that you were always going to win that race.
I knew I was going to win.
In the
end. It was a fixed race. You heard it here for the first time, ladies and gentlemen.
Back in 1959, Ben-Hur cost $15 million to make. By today's standards, that puts it up there with Waterworld. But unlike Kevin Costner's film, this one made big money. It earned Charlton an Oscar for Best Actor. But it marked the end of the era of the epic.
As somebody said, the trouble with movies as a business is that it's an art. And the trouble with movies as an art is that it's a business. And as someone else said, even more memorably, you have to understand it's not the money, it's the money.
You say that's, as you said, that's the biggest change in the movie business.
No question.
The cost of making films.
Because it wipes out whole genre of film.
It may be the characters he played. More likely, though, it's just Charlton. But these days, he is the wise old man of movies. He's had his share of flops, but the scripts keep arriving. When Paul Hogan needed God for Almost an Angel, well, there was only one choice.
Are you God? You're not a religious man, are you, Mr. Dean?
No, but I did plan to get very religious just before I died.
Yes.
And when Arnold Schwarzenegger was looking for a tough guy, even tougher than himself, for True Lies, again, it was Heston who got the part.
Sweet Jesus, Harry, you surely screwed the pooch last night, didn't you? Could you please tell me how I can see this as anything but a total disaster?
I've played a lot of those parts, partly because they are self-fulfilling. Once it was demonstrated that the Spanish would accept me as their greatest hero, the Cid. The Jews would accept me as Moses. Then, if those parts came up, they'd say, oh, yeah, Chuck Heston does that kind of, he can do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's probably true. About 3 years ago, Michael Korda, who's the president of Simon & Schuster, called me up, and he said, Chuck, it's time to do the autobiography. Those of you who haven't read it, read it. If you like it, tell everybody. If you don't like it, don't tell anybody. That's simple. That's what it comes down to.
When you've lived a life like Charlton Heston, the problem is not what to put in your book, it's what to leave out. And there's much more to Heston than just movie making. To put it mildly, he's archly conservative. He's pro-gun, pro-nuclear. He doesn't like where the world is heading, and he wants people to know. The world has changed
so
much in your lifetime, and there are lots of references in your book where you suggest that things aren't as good as they used to be, that something's not quite right with today's society.
Well, I think, I can't speak for Australia, though I think Australians are more like Americans than any other nation. And I think we have similar sets of values. And I think in America, at least, the American ethic is eroding.
And what is the American ethic?
That the responsibility of the individual is paramount. Somehow, we're arriving at a society where people say, well, nobody's really, you're not responsible for that. Probably you were abused by your father or something. It's okay, it's okay. And that is really dangerous.
Heston has been courted by the Republican Party for many years, but he says he likes acting too much to follow his friend Ronald Reagan into politics.
Hello.
Besides, when you've already been a president, an astronaut, a prophet, even God, being a politician mightn't prove all that exciting. You played John the Baptist, Moses.
God as well.
Do you reckon you've earned a passport to heaven?
We have to wait till we stand before the seat of judgment to find that out, don't we?
I half expect that when St. Peter opens the pearly gates, he will say, "Ah, Chuck, we've been expecting you. Come on in."
Wouldn't that be nice?